What is going on, y'all? It is your boy AT from AT's Barstool. Today we are here on episode 24 of AT's Barstool in week 2 of the DIAA high school football recap. If you guys are new to this channel, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to follow my Instagram. Link will be in the bio at AT's Barstool. And with that being said, let's get into it. So the first game of Friday at 6 p.m., we are going to go down to Del Castle at Dickinson. That game was not really a close one, which I thought it was going to be a pretty close game, and I thought Dickinson was going to win, of course. And Del Castle ended up winning that game 44-0. It was a brutal loss for Dickinson. Dickinson now down to 0-3, losing losing 3 straight, losing to 2 teams that they should have beaten in St. Andrews, which they lost last week 6-42, and now they losing to Del Castle 44-0. In this game, Ramir Berry was the standout player on the offensive end for this Del Castle offense, as he had 18 carries for 128 yards and a touchdown. Really good game for him. And also, 3 other guys also ran the ball in, as you had Jerry Delbridge, number 21, on Del Castle, Adrian Garistob, the other touchdown, and Keith Riley, who scored 1. And then they had 1 receiving touchdown, or not 1 receiving touchdown, but Nair Felder, he had a receiving touchdown from 10 yards out. And Adrian, the quarterback / running back and all that, he went 3 for 7 and threw for 31 yards and only 1 touchdown pass. It was just a good game when it came down to running the ball. Passing wasn't really the best, but he did not turn the ball over, and they barely threw the ball. On the defensive side, they had a lot of sacks. Yes, they had a lot. They had a total of 8 sacks, as that is how many sacks they had total. Dickinson allowed 8 sacks, and Del Castle sacked Dickinson's quarterback, Omir Morgan, a total of 8 times. Which, in this game, Omir Morgan did not throw a single interception, which this is the first game he hasn't thrown a pick, nor he didn't throw a touchdown pass. He just didn't have a good game. And Jafari Payne, he had a solid game, as he had a couple catches for about like 40, 50 yards maybe. Like probably 3-4 catches at that. Wasn't really the best of games. Dickinson did force their first turnover of the season, as they forced a fumble, and your boy, Aaron Thomas right here, recovered the fumble recovery, and I tried to run it, but I ended up getting tackled. But yeah, we did end up forcing our first turnover of the season, or Dickinson ended up forcing their first turnover of the season. That is the good thing, and they did get a lot of stops on the defensive end. It was just the offensive side of the ball. The O-line couldn't really block that well and gave up 8 sacks, which you're giving up 8 sacks, that's not good. And a lot of 3 and outs in that game, which absolutely killed Dickinson's offense, in which Jafari, he couldn't really get it going, and Markel Moran, the running back, he couldn't really get it going that game either. So all in all, it was just not a great game, and on the offensive end, and defensively, not really either, as they gave up 44, like I said. Most of those just being the lack of tackling. Wasn't really like the past game. They wasn't really getting killed like that, as I said before. They only completed 3 passes amongst 7, where one of those almost ended up being an interception from Dickinson. Dickinson almost got a pick, but it would end up being dropped. But all in all, it was not a bad game for Del Castle. Defensively, they got to the quarterback. Offensively, they just ran the ball on him like they usually do. And now Del Castle got their first win of the season, going 1-0. Not 1-0, my bad, 1-1. And Dickinson is going to drop to 0-3, like I said earlier. Now, the next game that we are going to be talking about here is Caravel Academy versus St. George's. This is a game I'm not going to really talk about much, even though it is 2 pretty good teams going against each other. Caravel blew them out with a score of 39-7. Isaac Chikora had a really good game, and that Caravel offense played really, really well, all in all. And yeah, they're still undefeated, and we will see if they can keep their win streak alive, as they'll be playing against Dover High School and Cesar Ronnie. Those are going to be their next 2 games. After those 2 games, they are going to be playing Apple Quinnipiac High School. That might end up being their first loss in like 2 years or 3 years. My bad. But all in all, Caravel's on a roll. They are now 2-0 on the year after taking down St. George's. And we are going to go on to our next game. Next game that we are going to be talking about here is the Apple-Quinnipiac Jaguars versus George Washington High School, a school in PA. Apple-Quinnipiac traveled down to George Washington High School down in Pennsylvania just to kill them 41-6. It was a blowout. George Washington High School did not score until the fourth quarter, where they scored a touchdown later on. But Apple-Quinnipiac, they just played a really good game all in all. And yeah, it was just really good. As Jasier Rogers, the four-star Penn State commit, had an incredible game, having 4 catches for 113 yards and a touchdown. While on the other hand, his teammate Dominic Monte Bell, I don't know. I'm bad with names. Anyways, Dominic, he had 2 catches for 74 yards and a touchdown. Also, Dylan Bacon, he had 2 catches for 47 yards and a touchdown. Really good game for them three. And guess who was throwing all them touchdown passes? The man himself, Desai Drummond, who went 10 for 14, throwing for 260 passing yards and threw for 3 touchdowns. Also, he did have 2 carries rushing for 16 yards. And it was just a really good game. They did run it 2 times in the end zone with Dylan Yancey, who had 4 carries for 43 yards and a touchdown, and Antonio Harvey, who had 3 carries for 11 yards and a touchdown. This team was just on a roll, and now, all in all, they are going to be moving on to the next week 2-0, as they will be playing a pretty tough matchup against Howard High School, which I do think they're going to win, but we're going to talk about that next week. All in all, it was just a good game. Defensively, played really well. Yalik Carter, he had an interception, as I seen in Trey Carter too. It was just a really, really good game for the Apple-Quinnipiac defense. In the offense, they did their thing. You know, the duo of of Dominic and Jasier at the receiver, they just did really well, catching, scoring, just the usual. And also, Jasier did have a really crazy highlight where he hurdled a defender, which was crazy. But all in all, really good game for Apple. They're 2-0. Their next 3 games, we already said Howard is going to be next week at 7 p.m. at Apple-Quinnipiac. Then after that game, they'll be playing on a Saturday against St. George's at 11 a.m. That is going to be a road game, a pretty tough road game. And then after that, they're going to be playing Cape Henlopen against Jameson Tingle in the Cape Henlopen Vikings. But all in all, Apple-Quinnipiac, they look good, played really well the last 2 games, and yeah, we'll see how the rest goes. I still think they are a top 3 team in the state. And now the next game that we are going to be talking about here is Lake Forest versus Cape Henlopen. This game was at Lake Forest. After Cape Henlopen started the year off 2-0, killing St. Mark's 33-3 and killing William Penn 35-7, they surprisingly, and I mean surprisingly, got upset by Lake Forest, losing 35-14. It's shocking, man. It's crazy. I thought Cape Henlopen was going to have another easy win where they just blow out Lake Forest, but Jack Parson and that Lake Forest team just absolutely balled out to where they end up winning this game. And Lake Forest is a team that lost their best player due to committing to DSU to play football, Darius Miller, and now they just good, bro. They just playing really well still, as they beat Cape Henlopen, which is a solid 3A school, and a 3A school who ended up going to states 2 years ago. And it's just surprising how Cape Henlopen didn't play all that well, and Jameson Tingle just struggled in that game. All in all, in their defense too. Oh yeah, let's not talk about Cape's defense. 35 to Lake is kind of crazy. In their next 3, ain't going to treat them nice. Them next 3 games ain't going to treat them nice, as they'll be playing against Hodson Friday at 7 p.m. at Cape Henlopen at Legend Stadium. And then after that, they are going to be playing Apple-Quinnipiac. We already talked about that. That's going to be at 7 p.m. at Apple. Then they're going to be on the road again, or still, against Smyrna High School at 7 p.m. on a Friday. That is going to be a really tough game. Apple and Smyrna, 2 really tough games. Hodson, that should be a pretty easy win for them in my eyes. But I don't know. They lost to a 2A school in Lake Forest. I mean, Lake Forest, they could be a top five, maybe top three team in the state this year in 2A. We gotta see, but that is kind of a crazy loss, losing by 3 scores. It's kind of crazy, but all in all, as a 3A school, they just need to do better. And they're about to play Hodson, which is a worse team than Lake. So yeah, we'll see how they do. And yeah, let's see how Jameson and the rest of this Cape offense, or yeah, just Cape team just do, man. Now, this next game that we're going to talk about here, y'all, is Middletown versus Our Lady of Good Counsel. Middletown is 0-2. They lost 2 really tough losses. They lost to Red Bank 8-13, lost to Bishop Watterson High School in Ohio 13-14. First home game against Our Lady of Good Counsel in Maryland. That's a high school in Maryland. Didn't go well. I thought Middletown was going to win this one, but I guess Middletown just, I don't know, man. They're now 0-3 as they lost 31-14. Eesh. That is going to be the first brutal loss they have. In their next 3, I mean, they are going to be playing in-state teams from now on, from this point on, but man, it's looking crazy though. 0-3. They lose one more game. I think this is the first time they'll lose more than 3 games in a while. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I don't really know about this game. I just know that the score was pretty bad, and I heard Middletown's defense was also pretty bad that game, and offense couldn't really do nothing either as they turned over the ball, and it was just really bad, man, really bad. They're 0-3. They do got to play Smyrna next, and Smyrna is going to be a pretty tough team as they look like a better team than last year. But I still got Middletown winning. I still have faith. But after Smyrna, they play Sussex Central at Central after that game, and then they play William Penn at William Penn, which they should be on a 3-game win streak. And after those 3, I think they can win some more games, and you know the story. I still think Middletown can win about 6 games, maybe 7. Don't be corny in the comments, please don't. But all in all, it was just not a good game for Middletown, and hopefully they bounce back next week against Smyrna, which is another really tough team. But this time it's down in Delaware. Coming back to Delaware and playing at Smyrna. So yeah, all in all, just not a great game for Middletown, and yeah, we'll see what they do next week. Now, this next game, this is a 7 p.m. game. Polytech versus Conrad. Polytech won this game. I watched this game. Woo! It was a really good game, man. Polytech ended up winning 25-23. They look like a really good team. Hillam Edwards, he looked pretty good. He did have some struggles early on, but they did come back and ended up winning this game. Conrad had a safety or so early in that game. They also, what's it called, forced the interception. They forced Hillam to throw one interception to Tommy McGorry, who also threw for 3 for 28 and threw for 26 yards. Also, he had 19 carries for 78 yards and a touchdown. And on defense, 2 tackles and had an interception. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention. He also threw an interception, too. And Lucas Schmidt, he had one of his best games. The running back from Conrad, formerly played at Dickinson his 8th grade year, now been at Conrad for 3 years. He had 23 carries for 139 yards and a touchdown. He was bulldozing his way every single run. It was a really good game for Luca. And all in all, yeah. And Charlie Shuttle, too, who's one of the best linebackers in the state, in my honest opinion. I think he's one of the best linebackers in 1A. He had a really good game as he had 12 tackles and 4 TFLs. And he also played some offense, too, where he put the team on his back and had 6 carries for 76 yards and a touchdown. Also having 1 catch for 12 yards, having a really good game. In Kyle Mullen, he had 6 carries for 48 yards and 1 reception for 7 yards. Also went 3 for 3 in extra points. It was a really good game for Conrad. Conrad competed really well with Polytech. I was pretty surprised. I thought Polytech was going to win this game by at least 7 to 10 points, but it ended up winning by 2 with the score of 25-23. And all in all, man, Polytech, they look good, played good. Now they're 2-0 on the year after taking down Conrad, as the first team they took down was Early College in a 50-12 win. Yeah, where Polytech can just easily rotate it, or not can, but they easily rotate it through their starters and backups throughout the game. And Early College did compete with them last week too. But we're not here to talk about that game. We're here to talk about Conrad and Polytech. It was just a good game, and their next game is going to be against Dickinson. Yeah, I gotta play them now, and they look pretty good already. So yeah, all in all though, yeah, this is going to be a good game though. Dickinson versus Polytech. I know Dickinson's 0-3, and I'm saying it's supposed to be a good game. I know it's kind of crazy to say that, but I got a feeling that Dickinson can come out and play well if they can put their mind to it. But all in all, that's really it though for that game. For the Conrad Polytech game. But yeah, next three Dickinson. We already talked about it. It's at 7 p.m. at Polytech. Then they play First State Military at Polytech, and then they're going to be playing Seaford at Polytech. All those games at 7 p.m. So they got 4 straight home games pretty much, and then the rest of their games after that will be away games, as they'll be playing St. Mark's as their first away game, and so on. But we will talk about that later in the season. I think Polytech can end up going undefeated, throughout these first 5 games. Take down Dickinson, then after that, take down First State, then after that, take down Seaford. And they're now 2A, and 2A is pretty competitive. They have not really played a 2A school yet. That's why I also said they might start off 5-0. I do think that First State and Seaford can definitely give them a little scare. Seaford definitely did that with Indian River beating them. I mean, not beating them, losing to them 35-26, only losing by 11, despite Seaford not playing that well last year. All in all, though, Polytech is 2-0, and yeah, we'll just see what they do against Dickinson next week. Then we're going to go to the next day, which was Saturday, yesterday. At last but not least, the last game I'm going to cover is Archmere Academy versus St. Mark's at Archmere. This is the game I went to, and this is the game I did an interview. If you've seen the interview, or if you haven't seen the interview, my bad, go check that out before you check this video out. I interviewed Elijah Burke. It's on the shorts page, and also the St. Mark's and Archmere Academy highlights are out too, so don't forget to look at those before you come over here and see the recap. All in all, though, this was one of the best games I've went to so far this year. Well, I haven't been to that many games, but this is definitely one of the better ones I've been to and watched with my own 2 eyes in person. As St. Mark's, they came back and won this game, getting their first win of the season after getting beat badly the first 2 games against some really tough 3A schools such as Cape Henlopen. Lost 33-3. We talked about this earlier, and they lost to St. George's 20-35 early on. But now they're 1-2 on the year after taking down Archmere Academy, which was a big surprise. I thought Archmere was going to go out there and win by at least like 1 possession, like usual, but they end up winning this game. St. Mark's ended up winning this game as Michael Donovan ended up throwing an interception, and he also fumbled the ball where St. Mark's recovered it, and little do you know, they ended up hitting the game-winning field goal. And yeah, rest is history. But Elijah Burke, he had a really good game as he had 2 rushing touchdowns. And then Tassan Wallace from St. Mark's, he had a couple big plays on defense, deflecting the ball, playing some really good defense in coverage, and covering the deep ball and all that. Also, on the offensive end, he also had some pretty important, or some key grabs to where St. Mark's ended up scoring on those drives where he caught the 20-yard passes or whatever. And yeah, and the rest is history, man. All in all, I think St. Mark's played a really good game. They did struggle mightily as they was down 28-14 early in the third quarter, as Archmere punched them first in the in the third quarter, and then St. Mark's just fought back and won that game all in all. And due to Elijah Burke and Mateo hitting that game-winning kick and all that, they end up winning. And for Archmere, Ryan Hagenberg, he looked really good as he had 7 carries for 112 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, also including a pick six on the defensive side of the ball. He had a 60-yard pick six, and he also had 3 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown. He absolutely balled out as the rest of his team kind of let him down. And then Michael Donovan, the quarterback, he didn't play that well, the backup. He went 4 for 14, threw for 152 yards in 1 touchdown pass, but did throw a pick. And that touchdown pass ended up going to none other than Ryan Hagenberg. They did get an interception themselves on defense. They got not one but two. Hagenberg, we already talked about the pick six, but Nathan Blessington also had an interception when he had 2 tackles in that game. Well, he did have 2 tackles in that game. And they also had a fumble recovery, Michael Jagg, fumble recovery in that game. And it was just a really good game. Shade Harden, he went 4 for 4 for Archmere from extra points. And yeah, this Archmere team looked really good offensively. Not off, yeah, offensively they looked pretty good as they was moving the ball really well. Hagenberg was doing his thing. It was just the turnovers that absolutely killed them. The interception and then the fumble, which set them up for a field goal, really killed them. And then one of the last few plays of the game, they threw the ball. It was a great catch over to Son from Mark Melvin. It was what, a 40-yard reception, but sadly it ended up getting called back and a penalty due to illegal forward passing from Michael Donovan, which is a pretty crazy call. Not crazy call, but it's just, not a good play, not a smart idea, smart read from the backup as he is a senior. But all in all, Archmere did drop down to 1-1 now as they beat St. East last week, and then they just lost to St. Mark's this week. And St. Mark's is now 1-2 on the year. Congrats to them. And their next 3 games is going to be against William Penn High School. That's going to be at William Penn next Saturday. And then Indian River at St. Mark's. That's going to be a Friday night game down there. And then they're going to go on the road again and play DMA at Delaware Military Academy. That's going to be a really tough game as DMA has looked really good the last couple weeks. But all in all, though, that's really it for today's video. And thank you guys for enjoying this video. If you guys are new to this channel, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And don't forget to follow my Barstool page at AT's Barstool and my main page at WannabeAT. Link will be in the bio. And with that being said, thank you guys for enjoying. Hopefully y'all have a good day. And I'll see y'all next week. Peace.